All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the California Department of Toxic Substance Control Exide public meeting. Our meeting this evening is scheduled to run from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Please note that all of our meeting materials are available in English and Spanish, and they are accessible at www.dtsc.ca.gov/Exide. Next slide, please. My name is Dion Falk, and I will be the facilitator for this DTSC Exide public meeting. I serve as the Public Participation Manager in the Office of Environmental Equity with the Department of Toxic Substance Control on the Exide project. Please note that you should now be able to see our PowerPoint presentation on your screen for tonight's meeting. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to go over our meeting guidelines with you. We want you to be aware that by participating in this meeting, you understand that this meeting is being recorded. You also understand that you may be muted for background noise. In addition, the chat feature will be used for DTSC informational purposes. Please pay close attention to our chat to receive important DTSC information, contact emails, and phone numbers, as well as DTSC updates. We will allow you additional time after the public meeting ends to obtain information posted in the chat. We ask that you limit your comments to allow everyone the opportunity to participate during the meeting. This Exide public meeting will focus on the residential cleanup and the Exide facility closure. However, if you have other Exide questions, please call our hotline number at 844-225-3887. Again, please call our hotline number if you have other questions regarding the residential cleanup. That number is 844-225-3887. Next slide, please. To support language and captions this evening, simultaneous Spanish audio interpretation is available. For this meeting tonight, click the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and select a language. It is important for everyone in this meeting to select a language, either English or Spanish. For Spanish-only audio, by phone, please call 877-920-8432 and enter code 741502#. Again, let me give you that number for Spanish-only audio. Please call 877-920-8432 and you can enter the code 741502#. Our presentation slides are available in Spanish as well. You can go to www.dtsc.ca.gov/Exide, and you will find them there. Automated closed captions have been turned on. For this meeting, however, you can turn them off by clicking the CC icon at the bottom of your screen or moving the captions box. Please note that these captions are provided for your convenience only, and they are not the official transcript of this meeting. Next slide, please. This public community meeting is being presented to you by the California Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Toxic Substance Control, also known as DTSC. Our mission is to protect California's people and the environment from harmful effects of toxic substances by restoring contaminated resources, enforcing hazardous waste, reducing hazardous waste generation, and encouraging the manufacture of chemically safer products. Next slide, please. Now I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and introduce our California Department of Toxic Substance Control Director, Dr. Meredith Williams, to give opening remarks. Dr. Williams, welcome.
Thank you, Dion, and thank you to all of you who've joined us this evening. We appreciate your taking time. You know, it feels like we say that every meeting, and you may not think that we're sincere about it, but again, we know that these meetings come at the end of a long workday, and that the very fact that you're here means that you have continued interest in how is this cleanup going, how we're progressing, and you may have questions that you need to have resolved. You may have concerns about the work that we're doing. And it is always our intent to make sure that we answer your questions, we can be as responsive as we can, and that we're available because it is a complicated and important cleanup and impacting all of you quite directly. I'm pleased about this evening's meeting. One of the first things we'll hear about is the request from the state of California that Exide be listed on the national priorities list of US EPA, and that would put it on the Superfund list. And that has the potential to bring additional resources to bear to the cleanup and to cover anything that the state has not been able to do. It is a process to go through the listing process, and you'll hear about that in a minute from our EPA partners. But it is a very important step to continue to bring focus to the cleanup, and it really is representative of the state's commitment to making sure that the remediation is thorough and complete. Well, there are always a number of important updates that you'll hear today. We're pleased to be joined by some of our partners from Local 300 and to discuss some of their role in terms of supporting the workers who are working on this project, because without the workers, this work couldn't get done. So I never want to take up too much time other than to say thank you. I will turn it back to Dion so that she can get us moving with the full agenda. Thank you, Dion, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. At this time, I would like to introduce Edwin Paulinelli, a manager with US EPA Region 9. Edwin has joined us to give a presentation on the National Priorities Listing process. Thank you so much for joining us. Edwin, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Edwin Paulinelli, and I'm a section manager at EPA Region 9 in San Francisco. I'm pleased to be here tonight to give a brief overview of the Superfund National Priorities List process and how you as the community can be involved. Next slide, please. EPA Region 9 brings a large number of resources and experience to the Exide project. Our main office is in San Francisco. We have field offices in LA, San Diego, and we have over 800 EPA staff working throughout the region. Our Superfund division is currently working on 114 active Superfund cleanup sites, as well as we have implemented or overseen the implementation of remedies of large groundwater contaminated sites that provide clean, safe drinking water to over 1.5 million people in California and Arizona every day. Next slide, please. Now that the state has asked US EPA to add the former Exide facility and the surrounding industrial and residential areas to the National Priorities List, or NPL list of Superfund sites, EPA has implemented the process to propose Exide in accordance with the Federal Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, also known as CERCLA. The CERCLA program, or more commonly called the Superfund program, was created to identify and, if necessary, address releases of hazardous substance that pose a significant threat to human health and the environment. But most important, involve the communities in the cleanup process. As Dr. Williams stated, placement of a site on the national priorities list makes the site eligible for federal funding, as well as provides additional enforcement authority to the site. So what does it mean to be listed on the NPL site, and how does that happen? The Superfund program has what's called the Hazardous Ranking System, or HRS, and it's the main tool for identifying releases at the site that warrant further investigation and possible cleanup. The role of the Hazardous Ranking System is an initial screening tool. It's not a full-on site-specific risk assessment, but used in the proposed listing evaluation. Next slide, please. The Hazardous Ranking System, or HRS, is a model that evaluates several different pathways of exposure, such as groundwater, surface water, soil exposure, air, and in some cases, vapor intrusion into buildings already there. What the HRS system does is it uses existing data, if available, or in many cases collects additional data and compares that to criteria to arrive at a numerical score. And I'd like to stop here just to highlight that this process and the partnership that Dr. Williams has already mentioned is ongoing already. We have EPA personnel and DTSC personnel sharing data that's been collected, and we've already started that evaluation process. Now, to arrive at the numerical score, or the HRS score, which informs the listing, we use the following criteria. We look at the amount and toxicity of a contaminant or contaminants, potential for contamination to spread, threat of soil exposure or migration to surface water, groundwater, or the air, and most important, risk to human health and the environment. If during the HRS scoring process, if a site receives a score of 28.5 or greater, it qualifies for further assessment under CERCLA, which includes proposed listing. The maximum score a site can receive is 100. So if a site does receive 28.5 or greater, it qualifies for including in the proposed listing process. Next slide, please. The following is a diagram just to highlight what the process is for listing. And it's important to note that this process is statutory, and we have to follow every step of it. As I talked about, if a site qualifies for NPL listing, we have what's called a listing package, and that goes to US EPA headquarters for review and approval. Once approved, it's sent to the state for concurrence, and the state evaluates the proposed listing decision and provides their concurrence. Now, I expect, since the state has requested EPA to list Exide in the surrounding area on the NPL, that this will be a relatively quick process. However, in some cases, in some states, it is more of a lengthy process. Once the state concurs on the proposed listing decision, notice of that proposed listing is published in the Federal Register, and a 60-day public comment period is open. During that 60-day period, the public and the community will submit public comments, questions, concerns that EPA will review, evaluate, and provide responses for those comments. Once those comments have been addressed and responded to, EPA then notices the final site listing in the Federal Register, and the site is added to the National Priorities List of Superfund sites. And I just want to note here that although it does look like this is a lengthy process and a lot of steps, it generally does take about a year to 2 years to go through the listing process. But I can assure you that work will not stop. The state is continuing the great work, and I have to commend all the work they've done on the facility as well as throughout the residential area. So thank you, and I'll turn it back to Dion.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate your presentation, Edwin. And at this time, we would like to invite our public members to ask questions and make comments on the National Priorities Listing process. There are 4 ways to make a comment or ask your question here today. If you are participating on Zoom, you can use the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. You will be invited to unmute your audio when it's your turn to speak. If you are dialed in to the Zoom audio, you can press *9 to join the phone queue. I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. You can then press *6 to unmute your line. If you would like me to read your question, click the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen and type in your question. Lastly, if you called in to the Spanish language line, our Spanish interpreter will ask your questions for you. I want to remind you that the chat feature will be used for DTSC informational purposes. Please pay close attention to our chat to receive important DTSC information, contact information, phone numbers, and updates. We will allow you additional time after the public meeting ends to obtain information posted in the chat. I will now start taking your questions and comments. I will go to our attendee list at this time and see if I have any hands raised. And I see Mark Lopez. I'm going to unmute Mark. Please go
Hi,
ahead.
yes.
Hi,
Thank
how
you.
are you?
I'm
Glad
doing
you were
good, and
able to
yourself?
join us. I'm good.
Yeah,
Glad
yeah,
you were
of
able
course.
to join us. Go ahead, go right ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about what would the boundaries be? Is it just the Exide site specifically? Or are we talking about including the larger residential cleanup, and what the possibilities might be for including the rail yards that surround Exide? Because those are large, flat, unpaved dirt areas where every time the wind blows, that's some of the most contaminated soil that we fear is blowing right back into our communities and recontaminating homes that are already getting cleaned up. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that, and if it is going to include residential cleanup, what the opportunities are to expand those boundaries as we get more data that shows us that the cleanup needs to go further geographically.
Excellent question. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, so your first question is, would it include the rail yard or the adjacent rail yard? And what's been requested of EPA is to look at the facility, the surrounding industrial rail area surrounding the facility, the residential area, as well as the parkways. So that has been included in the evaluation and the listing process for evaluation for potential listing. And your question in regards to the boundaries is, as a part of the listing process, we do look at all existing data. We potentially will take additional data. And the intent of the listing process, and as I mentioned earlier, it's not a risk assessment, it's a basic screening for a site to qualify to move on into the CERCLA process. And the extent of contamination, as you said, or the boundaries, is then evaluated after a site is listed. So we don't just generally accept a boundary of a site from a preliminary state. There is a process for evaluating the site, what's called extent of contamination, and data are collected to evaluate or how it can be attributed to the facility itself.
Thank you so much for that, Edwin. Okay, I'm going to go to a person that's called in. The last 3 digits of the phone number are 945. Please go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ruben Hernandez. I'm relatively new to this whole DTSC cleanup project. I've been calling the number for the last few months since I purchased my home in one of the areas where it seems like we qualify for the cleanup. And my curiosity is mainly on the fact that you mentioned it takes about almost 2 years to get to that point of the cleanup. But seeing as how over 90% of the people in my block have already done it, what's the turnaround for the re-examination of soil? Because I spoke last time to somebody through the DTSC and they told me that they're waiting on funding. So if they're gonna come and clean it, is it another 2 years for me to wait, even though we can tell that everyone in my general vicinity has already gone through the cleanup?
Thank you so much, Ruben. Mehdi, did you want to go ahead and take that question?
Yeah, thank you, Dion, and thank you for the question. Currently what we have is we are currently funded to clean every property that's exceeding 200 parts per million. So we do have the funds. So the 2 years that EPA had just mentioned would coincide with the time where our funds will be depleted. So we intend to continue the cleanup of every property that's exceeding 200 parts per million. And the funds coming from EPA will supplement what we have. So we will continue the cleanup beyond that point. So to answer your question in simple ways, if your property has been sampled and the concentrations is at 200 parts per million or above, you do qualify, and we have a way to get in touch with you. If you leave your reference with Dion folk, you can send us an email, and this is going to be presented here on the way you can reach out to us.
Thank you so much for that, Mehdi. We are going to go to Rafael Yanez. Hi, Rafael. Please go ahead and ask your question or make your comment.
Hi, Dion.
Hi.
Thank you. And I just want to thank everyone for this meeting. And I apologize if my mic goes out. I've been having issues. Unfortunately, I just want to say thank you so much to all of the politicians, local and state level, who have done a heroic job at keeping this issue at the forefront and not letting it die out. As you know, many administrations have, changed, and unfortunately with the US EPA, it's been difficult and very frustrating as new administrations come in, dismantle the EPA, and then we have to wait for another administration to come back and rebuild the EPA again in order to have them entertain, what's going on here in our community. And so I welcome the EPA now and hope that we get on the Superfund site. With that said, you had meant, and I want you to please reiterate, just in case, because I believe I missed it, what can the community do in order to help promote or get us on the list? I believe you opened up your comment in terms of what the community can do, and I didn't really understand or missed it. So if you could repeat that, so that way we can all stay involved in the process, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And where you as the community can provide input is exactly what you're doing right now, providing your support in these meetings. And I can assure you that we have a very strong partnership with DTSC, and we'll be working day to day with DTSC. There's a public comment period, which I mentioned in the flow process, that when we do propose the site for listing, opportunities for questions, concerns, and any comments that you have. But attend these meetings, ask us questions as we go through this evaluation process. That's what I could in response to your question.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I could provide a full technical write-up on this, as we have in the past. It's just sitting in our files, just waiting to be resent. So I welcome that. Thank you very much for attending tonight and
Thank you.
consideration of the site into the Superfund listings.
Thank you so much for that, Raphael. Great question. And we will do our part to make sure the community is aware when the public comment hits so that everybody has an opportunity to participate. So thank you again, Raphael. Great comment. I am going to go to Yvonne Martinez-Watson. Hi, Yvonne. Please go ahead and unmute your line and ask your question.
Hi, this is Yvonne Martinez-Watson. I used to live in an area, the same city where I live now, but previously the area that I lived in was within the 5-mile radius of the USC study that's being conducted right now to see if the contamination has spread even further than was originally investigated. Do you plan to include any of that information considered as part of the EPA's Superfund site?
Yeah, I am not aware of that study. And Mehdi, are you aware of that study? And is that information that you'd be providing to us?
Yeah, I mean, you can just go to USC's website, but you can contact either Mark Lopez or Eastart Communities. I'm with Sierra Club. I can send that to you if you'll give me a place to send it.
Yeah, we're happy to have the report. If you have something ready, we're happy to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
Yes.
We are going to go to Rania. Hi, Rania. Go ahead and unmute your line. Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Hello. Hi, Dion.
Hi.
And Edwin, thank you for your for meeting and sharing so much good information with all of us. You mentioned that in order to define the area that would be addressed and would be cleaned up, that there will be testing involved in order to define that area. When Mark Lopez asked you earlier, how do will it go beyond the PA current cleanup area? You vaguely mentioned there will be additional testing and so on. I actually would appreciate some specifics about what you're talking about. How will you define the site? Based on which information? If you're going to collect yourself the data, can you please share with us exactly how that is, the methodology, and what are the thresholds that you will consider a cleanup? Or will you follow DTSC's information for now? That's part one. Part two of my question is, you mentioned that there might be an expansion to that as time goes on. What would lead to an expansion that the community will need to provide you with so that that expansion may be considered? And please, I'd like that I continue to be allowed to have a part two to my question.
Okay.
Go ahead. Thank you, Edwin.
No problem. So good question. So the process of the part of the CERCLA process or the Superfund process that we're in right now is the site listing. And that is the very beginning of adding a site to be eligible to become a Superfund site. So that data right now is data that could be existing data that DTSC has already collected by other parties, or could be collected by EPA as a part of the hazardous or the HRS, the hazardous rating system score. And should that data in that initial screening give a score of 28.5 or greater, then we'll go through the listing process that I described earlier, and the site would be added to the list of national Superfund sites. Once a site is listed, that opens it up to further steps into the CERCLA process. And those steps include a remedial investigation to look at data, look at the extent of contamination, make evaluations of, like you had requested, what are the boundaries, what are the cleanup levels. All those are determined beyond the listing process. So I really, it's too early to put a number on what the cleanup level is or what would be the driver for the extent. That comes after the site is listed, and how that's defined, what samples would be taken, how it would inform the risk assessment, all that is post-listing and further down in the CERCLA process.
Okay, and thank you for that. My second question is about timing. It is my knowledge that Superfund sites take a very long time to be defined, to be listed, and for attention to be, for the cleanup to happen. And this community has just been taking so long to get the attention it needs, and it is being cleaned up slowly but surely, but it has been a very, very long drawn out process. How does listing under the Superfund or becoming a Superfund site accelerate this, speed up this process, attend to more than what the current funding attends to? Can you please share with us the additional benefits? Because so far I really have not heard any.
By a site coming on the Superfund list provides additional, it could provide additional funding as well as enforcement authority to secure funds for the cleanup. And you had asked how it would accelerate the cleanup. I think the important aspect of this is the listing, although the listing I said could take up to a year, and you are correct. Depending on what type of cleanup, Superfund sites can take, if it's a groundwater cleanup, it can take decades. Soil cleanup can take a year, it could take, several years. It just really depends on the type of cleanup, the extent of cleanup, and what the extent of the cleanup is. So what listing brings, it brings the resources of the federal government in partnership with DTSC. And I can tell you, my division director, the division director of Superfund, Mike Montgomery, toured the Exide site and the surrounding area 2 weeks ago with Dr. Williams and her team and her staff to become aware of it. And we bring a lot of expertise to help complement and be a part of the DTSCs. We have risk assessors, hydrogeologists. We have experience in cleanup. If we find areas that we have an emergency response authority. So there's a lot of avenues that we as the federal government, once the site is proposed as a site for listing, it brings additional resources, funding to the state, and only complements with the work that they're doing.
All right, thank you so much. We are going to move over to our Q&A, and I am going to go with a question from Mario Beltran. His question is, 3 close relatives of mine were diagnosed with different types of cancer, 2 with prostate, 1 with breast. Is it possible that they got sick due to pollution caused by Exide? Thank you. Mehdi, would you be able to provide a response to that?
Well, I will start by saying that I'm really, really sorry to hear it. I mean, these are the sad stories that we are hearing regularly. I'm not an expert in the health department, so I won't be able to tell you whether this case is related to the impact or not. But I can tell you that we are here to make sure that all the properties that we're committed to clean are going to be cleaned in a timely manner. But again, I'm so sorry to hear that you're dealing with this situation.
We all are. Thank you so much for that, Mehdi. I have a question from Maria. I'm so sorry if I mess up your name, Maria. Reveltas. Her question is, hello, everyone. I don't know if you can answer my question, but I'm still going to ask. I understand that right now you are doing residential cleanup that scored over 200 in contamination. How soon do you expect to start cleaning those that scored less than 200? And I know, Medi, you already answered that question, but if you don't mind answering that really quick for Maria.
Yeah, we are making sure that we're updating all the information online, but just to let you know, right now, the schedule that we are showing is indicating that all these properties have to be cleaned up. Everything exceeding 200 parts per million has to be cleaned up by March of 2025. At the current speed, I think we're going a little faster. So we do expect that we will meet that schedule without a doubt.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Sushana Patel. The listing process takes up to a year or longer. So could you please talk about anticipated timeline for the Exide project? Where is US EPA in this process at this time? That may be a joint response, Medi and Edwin.
So that's really a good question. It's, by the way, it's Suhasini, his name. Right now, what we have is, and I think I've said that previously, we are funded. We are funded for the next couple of years. Our projections are showing give or take March of 2025, but we may be able to even beat that schedule. And we're doing our very best to proceed as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, we are at the early stages for the EPA process. We just finalized we filed for the NPL listing, but we have already had multiple meetings with EPA just to make sure that we can shorten that duration. It is my understanding that the overall process takes about give or take 2 years, but because, and I think EPA has indicated that before, because we are willing partners, that may go a little faster. And I will let Chip respond to that question if he has anything else to add.
No, thank you, Medi, and you're correct, and we have already started to have high-level dialogue, understanding at what point EPA can start providing additional funds and resources, and I have to say we're very limited in the resources that we can provide until the point that the site is proposed for listing. When we notice the proposed listing in the Federal Register and opening up for for community comments, that is a point where we have more avenues to provide resources. Right now, where we are at is we are collaborating with the state. We are doing extensive data sharing, and that helps the process because we're not having to go out and collect as much data. Medi and his team has been phenomenal sharing data with our database people so we can evaluate existing data. So we are looking at every possibility of understanding the site, understanding the surrounding area and the available data to streamline this process as much as possible.
Okay, thank you so much.
I will add one additional point that's important here and that we need to mention here is that we are doing whatever we can to make sure that the work is not interrupted. So basically, we're trying to make sure that the work continues through the process between the two fundings without any interruption. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We have a question. When will the schools and parks get cleaned up if our main concern is for kids and elderly health?
Yeah, and this is part of our presentation today. We are going to basically show the results that we have, including what we have done on schools and daycares and childcares. And that's going to be part of the presentation I will be making here in a few minutes. But in short, we have cleaned up all the schools and parkway and childcare, sorry.
And this may be another one for you, Medi. Will any of the initial soil sampling data by the County of LA be considered in this process? This is a question by Joseph Martinez.
Yeah, I am not sure what the county has done or not. We are having regular meetings with the county. We exchange a lot of information. My understanding is they are in charge of the lead-based paint. So we do exchange information on a very regular basis.
Okay, Thank you so much. I am going to go to our Spanish Bridge line, and I'm going to check in with Tracy to see if we have any questions from our Spanish Bridge line. Tracy?
No questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Appreciate you. Let's see, we have more questions. We're going to do a couple more questions and we're going to get to our next set of presentations. And then Edwin will be available throughout our public meeting to answer additional questions, but we want to make sure we have time for all of our presentations here tonight. So I'm just going to take a couple more questions and then we're going to move into our next set of presentations for now. So I am going to go to Adelmas Vaquero. Hi, Adelmas. Go ahead and unmute your line and ask your question or make your comment.
Hi, thank you. Yes, thanks, Chip, for that presentation. And it's good to hear that DTSC and EPA are working together to share information and meeting together. And I just want to continue to push you all to do more interagency collaboration, not just now, not just starting in this process, but in a continual, as we continue in this like super fun listing process. It's important that EPA doesn't replicate DTSC's work because there's, again, a lot of studies, a lot of outreach that has already happened, but needs to, obviously be more. And so as part of also this interagency collaboration, it's important to include community organizations and groups and residents in general who have been working on this issue for many, many years. So I encourage EPA and DTSC to make sure that this this work doesn't happen in silos. It also includes community groups and folks impacted. And then I also wanted to ask for a clarification. It sounds like based on what I believe was Rania's question about whether this Superfund listing would expedite the cleanup. It didn't sound like it would, and so I would ask whether if it, if Exide is listed on the Superfund list, will it just go to the end of very, very long list of 100+ sites that you all are overseeing, and what else could be done besides working in collaboration and understanding the requirements of Superfund listing to make sure that this cleanup happens even faster than what it is already expected.
Great question, Adelmas. Thank you. Mehdi?
Yep, thank you, Dion, and thank you, Adelmas. Well, right now we have to remember that we are working with close to a maximum of trucks we can carry through the PIA. So obviously we need to clean up as many properties as we can, but we're also trying to minimize major impacts to the community. Right now, we have 30 active crews on site, a solid number of trucks coming in and out. This is probably the limit that is in the EIR that we have. That's one. Two is to the question of how the money from this listing will help us. Right now, we have limited funding. The state has funding that can carry us, like I said, until March 2025 on the residential, but we are evaluating with US EPA, and we're going to have multiple discussions to include, like Chip said earlier, Edwin said earlier, the areas outside Exide, industrial areas that were not included. So we're going to include that. We're also going to evaluate the parkways. We're not currently funded to do this. This is going to be part of the evaluation as well. So it will add funding that is needed. As far as how quickly can we go, we have streamlined our process to the extent we can, and we are revisiting daily just to make sure that with the existing 30 crews, can we do more and how can we do it best? But at this point, and we're going to go through the presentation, you're going to see what is being done as far as changing the process and how it's working.
Thank you so much. Edwin, did you want to add anything before we move on, or?
No, I think Medi covered it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. We'll have more questions. We're going to move into our next set of presentation. Thank you all. Great questions, great comments. And we're going to allow you another opportunity. We have 2 more public comment opportunities. So we will get to your questions, but we want to make sure we have time. So with that said, we are going to receive General Exide project updates from Mehdi Batahar, Assistant Deputy Director with DTSC. And then we will move on to a presentation from Mr. Javier Nunez, President of LIUNA, Local 300 Union, followed by a residential cleanup update by Stephen Hariri, Project Manager with DTSC. So with that said, I am going to go to Mehdi for his presentation.
Thank you, Dion,
Thank
and
you.
good evening. Thank you for being with us tonight. My name is Mehdi Betahar, and I manage all aspects of the Exide project. I will be presenting tonight a quick recap of our budget history and status of residential cleanup. I will then follow up on the previous public meeting held in May and present some of the milestones achieved to date. Slide 15, please. Prior to July 2021, all authorizations total about $251 million. This budget was for DTSC to 1, sample all the approximately 10,000 residential properties located within a 1.7-mile radius around the former Exide facility. 2, clean up 2,500 properties with the highest level of lead in soil and the greatest potential of exposure. And 3, develop a job training program, which is known as DTSC Workforce for Environmental Restoration in Communities, commonly referred to as the WORK program. As of July 5, 2022, for the estimated fiscal year 21-22, we have expended $246.9 million out of the 251.1. And there is about a balance of about 4.2 million. This balance is reserved to cover for some unforeseen work that needs to be performed on certain properties. Slide 16, please. As the slide shows, and this has been consistent throughout all our previous presentation, 87% of the funds have been assigned to remove the contaminated soil and restore the properties. Another 8% of the funds are being used for sampling or have been used for sampling. That means a total of 95% of the funds have been assigned or are being used for cleanups. 4% of the funds have been assigned or are being used for project quality assurance, the work program, communication, etc. And about 1% is reserved for IT support. Slide 17, please. On July 2nd, 2021, Governor Newsom approved legislation that directed $322.4 million for DTSC. Out of the $322.4 million, $29.1 million were used to complete cleanup of 3,200 properties by December 2021, an objective that we have actually reached successfully. $50 million were encumbered in a cleanup contract to ensure continuous cleanup until our public solicitation for new contract is completed. That is a total of $79.1 million that have been used or encumbered to date. $187 million are in process of being contracted for cleanup of remaining properties with concentrations exceeding 200 parts per million, and that leaves us a balance of $56.3 million. Slide 18, please. Now, this slide probably responds to a lot of questions that we have heard earlier. Based on our record, we are on track and on schedule to complete 5,940 properties by March of 2025. And although inflation has increased by about 28.5% since January of 2021, which is a drastic increase in inflation, based on the California Construction Cost Index, we are managing to remain on track with our budget. Slide 19, please. For the facility budget, as of July 5th, 2022, DTSC has encumbered, we were authorized 132 million for the facility. DTSC has encumbered $5 million on contract for site operations and maintenance and scoping of demolition for certain regulated buildings, non-regulated buildings. We are working on contracting about $50 million by end of 2022. Contracting will be done through a public solicitation and all information will be made available on our website. That will leave a balance of about $78 million for the next steps of cleanup work needed at this site. Mrs. Poonam Acharya, project manager for the facility cleanup, will provide more detail about what's being planned at the facility. Slide 20, please. Now let's move to the general update. I have also included follow-ups to our previous ETAG or public meetings. The latest was held on November 18, 2021. Slide 21, please. Health and safety. This is a topic that is front and center of what we do because we're talking about field work here. We comply with all HAZWOPER regulations. The workers receive the right training. They have a refresher. The training is 40 hours. The refresher is 8 hours every year. We comply with the COVID-19 protocol. When we say we comply, that is with both the CDC and the local, in this case, county health department. Dust control. This is a very important point. We have a continuous monitoring throughout the workday with dust suppression, and so far we have not seen any exceedances. When I say here no exceedances, it's over an 8-hour period. I need to emphasize today, because this is important, that any time dust is observed or registered in our monitoring, work stops while appropriate mitigation measures are implemented. We resume the work when the situation is back to normal. We don't allow the work to continue when the dust is either visible or is being recorded in our monitors. And lastly, it's the summer. So heat stress requires frequent breaks, shade, water to hydrate so that people can be hydrated. And the good news is we have nothing to report here as far as incidents related to heat stress, which is very common during this time of the year. Lastly, we have submitted all the requested documents by Dr. Rania Sapti. We also met with Dr. Sapti in June to discuss how best we can collectively identify any needed improvement with regards to workers' health and safety. I am really hoping that this is going to be a continuous conversation because this is not something that starts with no end. We hope that throughout the life of this project, we have a chance to work with her on this important issue. Slide 22, please. Now, this will probably answer the question of how fast can we go and where are we with the cleanup. The new cleanup implemented early this year, and which consists of cleaning up properties on the same street or block, combined with other efficiencies we introduced in our process, has shown some increase in our cleanup rates. The number of cleanup properties has increased from 80 to over 90 properties per month. In addition, there is no major impact to parking compared to before. And this is very important. This community has suffered or can suffer from parking issues if we start increasing the number of crews. And this was evaluated as part of our environmental report. We have also seen that few previously reluctant homeowners requested to be enrolled, likely after seeing some of their neighbors' property being cleaned up. I will take this opportunity to ask that you speak with your neighbors and friends and encourage them to enroll in this cleanup list. This is important. Slide 23, please. I have shared this information on the last meeting, but this is important. I need to reiterate it. DTSC has received reports of people claiming to be from DTSC or one of our contractors in the Exide cleanup area, and they pretend that they're able to expedite cleanups in exchange for money. Please note that DTSC cleanup services are provided free of cost. No one from the state will ever ask residents to pay to receive the service or to be moved higher on a priority list. So if someone approaches you with any type of request, you have the right to ask and see their identification, photo identification. And you also have a hotline that's available here, 844-225-3887. Please reach out. Slide 24, please. Finally, to the main question of the day, where are we with the cleanup today? Next slide, please. As of July 22, 2022, we have cleaned up 3,907 properties, and we are maintaining 30 active crews in the field. And what's important here today is I'm giving you the dates of July 22nd, but we are checking these numbers very regularly. I can tell you that our projections are showing that hopefully by the end of the month, we may reach the milestone of 4,000 properties cleaned up. We have completed cleanup of all identified schools, parks, daycare, and childcares requiring cleanup. And we are in constant communication with the licensing agencies for the daycare to make sure if there's a new daycare that appears in their list, we jump on it right away and have it cleaned up. Concurrently, we have secured over 1,700 access agreements from the new released list of properties exceeding a lead concentration of 200 parts per million. Finally, we have secured close to 400 access agreements from a list of 1,500 properties that were never sampled due to the owner being reluctant to participate in the initial sampling process. So this is going to be our focus, is making sure that we get these properties sampled because we don't know what their status is. Slide 26, please. Lastly, we have been tracking our contract's compliance with regards to the project labor agreement, and I'm happy to report that for the most part, actuals are currently exceeding the hiring goals established in the PLA, project labor agreement. The recent decrease in the new environmental workers, you can see it here at 47%, is attributed to field workers taking time off during the summer season. We are working with our contractor who will provide the plan showing how they can comply with this last category and meet their contractual obligations. And based on the latest information we have received, they're actively working on that plan, and it looks promising. Next slide, please. As always, I would like to thank all the residents that signed up for the cleanup and welcomed us in their homes. We're also very grateful to all field workers who day after day managed to keep this project going. We acknowledge all the challenges they face on this project, including all the constraints related to COVID-19. For those who could make it to this meeting today, please convey our sincere gratitude and thanks to your colleagues. And talking about workers, we have their union present with us today. So without any delay, I will pass it on to Mr. Javier Nunez, President of Local 300, the union representing the field workers on this project. Javier?
Thank you very much for having me tonight. I want to say hello to all the residents. Mary, thank you for that presentation. Well, welcome all of you that are here. You took time of your busy schedules in this evening to join us. My name is Javier Nunez. I'm with the Laborers International Union of North America, Local 300, covering all of Southern California when it comes to abatement and cleanup and hazardous waste. And we represent the workers at Exide. Exide is a very unique project. It has a project labor agreement. It was discussed earlier that there was some concerns from residents that the work would not slow down. The project labor agreement, what it does is it enables the developer and the state, along with the LA Orange County building trades, not to have that stoppage so that we can move forward. You know, a project labor agreement is in place here on this project. It is a contract between the owner, the union, along with the building trades, and it works very well. And all the employees working on this project are represented by Laborers Local 300. It provides prevailing wages, so it's a good thing. It provides a pension and health care for the workers and their families. which is very important. It's an entry to the construction, and now I'm happy to announce that the abatement at one point and the hazardous material did not have an apprenticeship program, and now we're in the infant stages of beginning an apprenticeship program, which is great. Also, it has a local hire provision, so which has given, I think, 50% of the local residents an opportunity to join the laborers union and be part of the project and be part of their community and the cleanup of their community, which is great. What a project labor agreement does with, you have a skilled workforce, is the project is built on time and under budget, because that's the goal. Also, I'd like to add that all the workers on this site, they go through a physical, so they get tested and they get to make sure that they are healthy to continue the work here at the Exide project. For our community, local hire, the next slide, please. Local hire and community outreach, supports the local economy, mentorship, and right behind me is my kitchen. I'm actually videotaping here, and my kitchen right now is it just got drywalled. It got gutted, and of course, this is what happens when you're a construction worker. Not only that, do you gain a knowledge of the construction industry, but you can go ahead and work on your own home. I am the project manager. I am the developer. I am the one running the work here, and besides my full-time job. So, you can learn so much, and that's the opportunity that the Laborers International Union of North America creates for the members, because later on, as this cleanup comes to an end in the future, these members of the union members can go on to other projects. And that's what's so great, because once they reach the 4,000 hour level, they can transition into construction, which Laborers Local 300, we do the SoFi Stadium. I mean, we're in the big leagues. I mean, we do the big stuff here in Los Angeles. For the owners and developers, it builds relationships with them, stability, efficiency, working in harmony. Any place of employment has their hiccups and their issues, and that's what the union does, so that we can resolve those issues, on time, and we can keep moving forward. Amen. And we're just grateful that we're able to provide that type of service for the Exide project in partnership with the state of California, with DTSC. Next slide, please. The elements of the project labor agreement. We have labor relations, as I spoke with earlier, and dispute resolutions, because disputes do happen, and they take place, but the contractors that are out there, I work very well with them. And you'll say, well, Mr. Nunez, how do you know that? Well, I happen to be the representative that handles all the disputes on this project. So any labor dispute, any dispute between an employee and the contractor, it comes to my way. Labor compliance, certified payroll, make sure and it, you see, you have a double, oversight, because you have the state that oversees, but then you also have our trust funds that oversee to make sure that the worker is being paid fair wages, his health and retirement is being contributed into our trust fund, and our job is, there's a union representative that goes out to the Exide project by the name of Jaime Yanes, and he also has an assistant that helps him, a helper that helps him named Martin de la Cruz, and they go out and patrol the project to make sure that the project is safe. It was said earlier, make sure that they have water, make sure that they have a shade structure while they're having lunch, and making sure that nobody, dehydrates and or any heat stroke or anything like that. That's the last thing we want to see, because all that does is it impacts the monetary value for the contractor and the work comp and all that. We don't need that. Local hire and community outreach. There's many local hires here. The career training opportunity are just, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal that we're able to take, individuals. And one thing about Laborers International Union of North America, we take individuals, and the requirements, okay, are zero, really. You just a willingness to work. It doesn't require, a high school diploma, doesn't require, even, of course, you need to have a driver's license because you got to get from place to place. But if you don't have one, you know, it's not a requirement for the Laborers International Union of North America, because there are many in your community that don't have that. But one day they'll obtain them because maybe, you know, different situations or circumstances that they might have fallen into. And this is where the Laborers Union, in partnership with DTSC, in partnership with the LA Orange County Building Trades, brings to your community. It brings opportunity for that individual that maybe had no hope and no opportunity. And that's the great thing about, you know, this project, that it has brought opportunity to many. Next slide, please. You know, who is La Una Laborers Local 300, who we are? Well, you know, we represent over 8,000 members in the construction, probably about 9,000 now in the construction industry here in the county of Los Angeles. You know, we're active and our retirees are active. You know, we both do private and public work. You know, we're doing a lot of, like I said, we're doing a lot of work at Los Angeles Unified School District, the remodeling, Los Angeles Community College District, also the Triple H projects, you know, for homeless housing. And so we're involved in all of that. And it just makes it an opportunity for our community, for the county of Los Angeles. And I'm very proud to be the president on behalf of our business manager, Mr. Sergio Rascon. He embraces the program, he embraces the project labor agreement, embraces the Exide project, and wants to let everybody here know that he is happy to represent all the workers here that are at the Exide project. Mr. Rascon works diligently very hard to move forward. And the Laborers Local 300, you go on our website and you can take a look, you know. Next slide, please. We do the mining and the tunneling. If you ever taken the metro, guess what? We built the metro. We pour concrete, we place it, we finish it, do demolition, landscaping, tree trimming, asphalt, and environmental work. And that's what I was talking about earlier, that these employees that are working here now, later on after 4,000 hours, can transition into other opportunities in the construction industry. Next slide, please. What does the environmental laborer do? Environmental laborers are trained to perform, you know, lead abatement, asbestos abatement, mold abatement, soft demolition in conjunction with remediation, infectious control, risk assessment, anthrax remediation, disinfection, and sterilization. And we, Laborers Local 300, handles all Southern California. What does that mean? The workers that are members of Laborers Local 300 in the environmental, we are the union that provides manpower to all the contractors in Southern California. So that means in Kern County, means, you know, Ventura County, Orange County, San Diego County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County. We handle all Southern California. The Exide, next slide, please. The Exide project labor agreement currently being performed at Exide is under a project labor agreement with the LA Orange County Building Trades and Construction Trades. The Exide project labor also includes the local and targeted hire component, ensuring that those, as I said earlier, residents most impacted by this contamination are brought to the Laborers Union to help remediate the contaminated homes. So that is great. That is so awesome that we have residents that also can be part of that. I just want to thank everybody on this, all the presenters and everybody who has taken place. And believe me, if you have any questions, you can reach Chris Hannon over at the LA Orange County Building Trades. His number is area code 213-483-4222, or you can always call the Laborers International Union North America Local 300 and ask for Javier Nunez. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions that maybe will not be able to be answered here tonight in the short time that we have. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure here to speak with all of you tonight, and I'm hoping that this meeting is informative. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and pass it over now to Stephen Herrera, our next presenter. Stephen, take it from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Javier Nunez. Good evening. My name is Stephen Herrera. I'm the project manager for the Exide Residential Cleanup Project. The following slides present a brief update on the current status of the residential cleanup. Slide 39, please. As a recap, this map presents the preliminary investigation area where our cleanup efforts are active. The preliminary investigation area includes the 7 jurisdictions outlined. The areas include the cities of Commerce, Los Angeles, Maywood, Bell, Huntington Park, Vernon, and an unincorporated area in the county of Los Angeles. Slide 40, please. This slide presents the 5-step process for the cleanup. It begins with a notification letter to the property owner that their property qualifies for cleanup. Thereafter, the planning phase of the cleanup involves communicating directly with the property owner at least twice before the actual cleanup starts. That includes an initial and pre-construction meeting. Subsequently, the actual physical cleanup efforts commence. Finally, after the cleanup is complete, all documentation related to the cleanup is compiled into a report referred to as the letter of completion. Slide 41, please. The next slides provide a brief update on the residential cleanup currently underway. Our previous quarter's efforts were focused on 2 large apartment complexes named the Wyverwood Gardens and Estrada Courts, respectively. The cleanup at the apartment complexes is complete, and the focus is now on individual residences. Slide 42, please. This slide presents the residential cleanup progress. The preliminary investigation area includes approximately 10,000 sensitive land use parcels. These parcels are comprised of single and multifamily residential properties, schools, parks, daycares, and childcare facilities. As of July 22nd, 2022, approximately 3,907 parcels have been cleaned up. 9,092 parcels or decision units have been sampled, and just over 1,136 parcels in the preliminary investigation area have not been sampled. DTSC typically reaches out to a property owner about 7 times. Notifications will be sent every 60 days until access is obtained or cleanup is declined. DTSC honors the request of a property owner previously reluctant to participate in the program for sampling and cleanup. Slide 43, please. This graph shows the progress of our cleanup efforts from May 2018 through July 2022 of this year. The solid green line shows our steady progress to date, the number of properties cleaned up, and the yellow dotted line shows our projected number of parcels to be cleaned up. We're on track in accordance with our schedule. In May and June 2020, cleanup was slowed due to COVID-19 and subsequently due to excessive smoke in the valley from nearby wildfires. The work was purposely slowed down out of concerns for worker health. DTSC achieved its goal of cleaning up 3,200 properties before December 31st, 2021. Our next milestone is reaching a total of 4,000 properties cleaned up, and we are confident we can meet this goal by the end of August. Slide 44, please. This table presents our cleanup efforts for the schools, parks, and daycares in the preliminary investigation area. A total of 31 schools, 16 parks, and 79 daycares have been identified in the preliminary investigation area. All schools, parks, and licensed child care facility cleanups have been completed. There are no additional schools or child care facilities requiring action. DTSC receives and monitors an updated list of daycare facilities in the preliminary investigation area from the California State Community Care Licensing Division on a quarterly basis. Slide 45, please. We are also actively building a backlog of properties for cleanup so that the work will continue into 2022 and beyond. We are committed to addressing contaminated soils for those residential properties that qualify for cleanup. Recently, we have reached out to 2,352 property owners with lead concentrations over 200 parts per million to notify them that their properties qualify for cleanup. As a result, we have received 1,725 access agreements. Concurrently, we have secured 377 access agreements out of a list of 1,513 that have been reluctant in enrolling in the sampling program since 2013. Slide 46, please. Protection of the health and safety of workers and the community while maintaining quality of the cleanup work is paramount. The COVID-19 protocols have been strictly maintained without deviation since March 2020. The protocols include, but not limited to, the recommended use of masks, proper hygiene, and social distancing. The current COVID-19 Omicron subvariant BA.5 is more easily transmissible, and infections have been increasing. Consequently, the Los Angeles County Department of Health is considering a universal mask mandate as infections continue to rise. As the summer is here and the days get longer, the stress of working outside during hot weather also increases. Safe work in hot weather requires additional breaks and water to prevent heat-related injuries. Also, additional water is required to address drier conditions from the heat to prevent dust. We certainly appreciate the strenuous conditions that workers in the field experience with the summertime high temperatures and wearing of personal protective equipment. We would like to thank all the workers for their professionalism and perseverance during the cleanup. Slide 47, please. As the state of California faces the driest 3-year sequence on record and drought levels not seen since the late 1970s, Governor Newsom has ordered every water agency in the state to implement conservation actions. The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California informed 6 million residents that they will not be able to water their lawn and gardens more than once a week starting June 1st, 2022. The Metropolitan Water District encompasses only a portion of the Exide preliminary investigation area. Likewise, the state of California on June 10th, 2022, required local water suppliers to implement certain restrictions on outdoor watering. In general, these restrictions include limiting the water of lawns to once a week, with further outdoor watering restrictions to include fines or a ban. Slide 48, please. The lack of water will mean that the Exide project will focus more on a limited number of plants when providing drought-resistant landscaping solutions with the most flexibility for residents. Residents requesting sod will be required to sign a waiver, as we cannot guarantee the proper growth of grass without intense watering for the first few weeks following installation. This is a real challenge in light of the drought conditions and new water restrictions. Slide 49, please. If you would like more information, please contact our public participation specialist, Ms. Dion Falk, or myself at the addresses and phone numbers shown. Additional information on the residential cleanup project is available on our website at dtsc.ca.gov. I would like to take this opportunity to reach out to any resident who has not provided access or participated in the cleanup to please contact us. Your participation in the program protects you, your family, and your neighbor from future exposure. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank all of our presenters, Mehdi Batahar, Javier Nunes, and Stephen Harari for your presentations on the Exide residential cleanup. At this time, we are going to go back to our community members to invite them to ask questions, make comments. I'm going to remind you that there are 4 ways that you can ask a question or make a comment here today. If you are participating on Zoom, you can raise your hand feature, and at the bottom of your screen, just press that button, raised hand feature, and you will be invited to unmute your audio when it's your turn to speak. If you dialed into the Zoom, you can press *9 to join the phone queue. I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. You can then press *6 to unmute your line. If you would like me to read your question, I am able to do that. Just go into the QA feature at the bottom of your screen and type in your question. I also want to remind you that the chat feature will be used for DTSC informational purposes. So please pay close attention to our chat to receive important DTSC information, contact emails, phone numbers, and also DTSC updates. We will allow you additional time at the end of our public meeting to go in and capture all that information. Lastly, if you called into our Spanish line, feel free to ask your question through our Spanish interpreter, and I will read your questions out loud, and then we will get those questions answered as well. I will now start taking your questions and comments. And so what I'm going to do is go to the raised hand feature, and I see Patty has her hand raised. So Patty, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute and ask your question.
Hi.
Hi.
My mother has property in the area and it's been tested at over 200 parts per million. She's got real concerns about a very, very old tree on the property. So what happens when you remove the dirt, and is there some sort of care given to take care of the tree so it doesn't die?
Great question, Patty. Thank you so much for that. Mehdi, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to you.
Thank you, Patty. And I'm glad you're giving me an opportunity to clarify this important point. We have many properties that we have excavated. Right now, like I said, we are close to 4,000 properties cleaned up. Many of these properties have old trees. And I know I have trees in my house. I'm attached to them, so I can understand where you're coming from. The excavation will be protective of the trees. The way it works is we use the canopy of the tree to step away from the trees. What they do is just excavate the top parts, expose the roots, and then backfill in order to prevent the tree from being damaged. But we are not excavating underneath the trees. For everybody else who is with us today, any plant that exceeds 4 feet in height will be left in place, and we will ensure that we are not damaging these plants unless the owner obviously remove the plant, and we are ready to excavate after that.
Thank you so much for that, Mehdi. We are going to go to William Madariaga. I hope I didn't mess up your name, William. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute and ask your question. William, are you there?
Can you hear us?
Oh, I hear you now. Go right ahead.
Okay, I'm his wife. He's here with me.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How about you? And thank you. This is our first meeting.
Okay.
We bought our property 4 years ago. We weren't aware of the issues until I want to say 2019 when I started to see the mitigation of the other properties. We got tested. My concern is we have a 1-year-old grandson that comes that we take care of him on the weekends. His parents work. And we're really concerned that we don't know how far in or out we are on the list. And we don't take him outside. But we're concerned that all that dirt that comes through the front door, the outside, and the sides into the house might affect him. I'm not sure. But we are concerned that pretty much your question is, we just want to mitigate it. What can we help? How can we help to get it done, especially with the babies here?
Great question. Thank you so much for that. Mehdi, you want to answer that question?
Yeah, very quickly. And not knowing exactly where the concentration is and how far it has been sampled, what I would recommend here is that we touch base with you and we can visit with you and see your results and see what can be done. There are many, many instances. It's not like a list and we're moving with the list without looking at exceptions. So if that's okay, we can visit with you and we are going to basically hear you on this specific case and see how we
I would appreciate that very much. I'm at home anytime.
Great. Actually, can I invite you? Do you happen to have a pen and paper available?
I sure do.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and call our hotline and let them know that you were on the Exide public meeting and that Dion asked you to call in so that we can go ahead and speak with you and go over your results or your testing with you. The hotline number is 844-225-3887.
887. Let me repeat the number, 844-225-3887.
You're correct.
And then tell them that Dion told me to give them a call.
Yes.
So that-
And we will go ahead and we're going to access your information and we will have a conversation with you about your specific property, like Medi recommended.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I am going to go to the phone number ending in 831. You can go ahead and unmute and ask your question. Eight, 3, 1. Okay, I will come back to you. Let's see. I have Zoom user. I don't have a name. I'm going to allow you to unmute and ask your question or make your comment.
Hi, my name's Alan. What happens if Patty's my sister, if they elect not to clean up the area?
Okay, thank you. Medi, did you want to address that?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, she just doesn't like the government telling her what to do, and she feels that she doesn't have to do it.
Okay. Well, at this point, we have shared in the past, we are guests in this community. We are strongly encouraging people to clean up their yard because it's not just about your yard, it's also your neighbor's yard. We're hoping not to leave anything untouched by the time we leave. This is simply making sure that you, your family, and the kids are in the family are safe using the property moving forward. So we can only strongly recommend that you get enrolled. This is important. And that's the message I'll leave you with. It's
my mom owns apartments and she doesn't even live there.
But you have tenants in there, right? So
Yes.
if the soil is impacted, then there is some type of exposure to the tenants.
You would think so, but she doesn't seem to give a care.
Unfortunately, all we can do is make sure that we have an access agreement from the owner before we step in. So if we don't have an access agreement, we cannot proceed.
Thank you so much. We are going to now go to our Board of Environmental Safety Board Member, Lizette Ruiz. Welcome to the Exide Public Meeting. Thank you for joining us.
No, thanks for having this. This is very informational. And as somebody who grew up in the impacted area, it's very important that you know, our community members are aware of what is going on and you know, the changes, if any, that are going to be happening because of the new listing. And I actually had a couple of questions regarding the status for somebody who gets their property cleaned up, and whether people who are approached are told about the probability of this coming up during any property transaction. I know that it's common for commercial and industrial properties to undergo a phase 1 environmental site assessment before, you know, usually before a property is sold to another entity or person. And so I'm wondering whether, you know, any residents have been asked, because they are within, you know, the 5-mile radius of Exide, you know, whether or not they have to prove that their property has been cleaned up, and whether that's something they should be concerned about if they're going to be selling their property, you know, whether that might come up as a question, or even, you know, as something that needs to happen before they can even proceed with selling their property. And the other question I had was related to the dust mitigation, whether the South Coast AQMD is involved with any of the mitigation, whether they are showing up to the sites to make sure that that adequate readings are being held. I understand the because metals are involved, Rule 1466 is something that has to be considered, or am I correct? And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to turn that over to Medi, and it looks like Jason Espel would like to also join in. Thank you so much for your questions.
Thank you, Ruiz. The answer on the first question is yes. We've had few instances where homeowners would request the reports. Once the property gets cleaned up, they want the report as quickly as possible because they're in the middle of transaction. And we try to work with them the best we can. As far as whether people should be aware or not, I think they're aware because all properties, whether they have been sampled or not, that question will come up. During any transaction, they will come up. Because we have documented that the entire PAI and the 10,000 properties have been affected. So we are having these questions very regularly. To the second question that you have regarding the dust mitigation, this project has elected to comply. First, we comply with Rule 403 because it is a remediation, but we have also elected to comply with 1466 even when it's not required. Even for small sites that don't meet that 50 cubic yard, we have these monitors in place. Monitors are placed, upgrading and downgrading it on a very, very small property. So we have elected very early on to be very conservative because we take it seriously. And with that, I will probably hand it to Jason if you want to add anything. I would just add one quick note here is that yes, AQMD has been inspecting these properties. We have seen their inspector many, many times, and they're doing their job. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Mehdi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Aspel. I'm with South Coast AQMD. I am in the engineering and permitting department, but we work closely with our compliance and enforcement team. As Mehdi said, the inspectors do go out periodically to check on the work. A lot of sites do fall under our Rule 1466, which was mentioned. So they check for compliance with that, in addition to responding to any complaints. Obviously, if there was dust crossing the property line or track out, those are things that the inspector would be looking for and enforcing our rules. But again, if anyone suspects non-compliance issues or has other complaints about the work, the complaint line is 1-800-CUT-SMOG, CUT-SMOG, and you can file a complaint at any point. An inspector will reach out about the work.
Thank you so much, Jason. Appreciate it. I am going to go back to our call-in caller that ends in 831. Again, phone line ending in 831. Please unmute and ask your question. Press *6. Okay, it's not working. I am going to go now to, let's see. I have Peter Reyes. Hi, Peter. Please go ahead and unmute and ask your question. Peter, are you there? Okay, we are going to go to Maria Estrada.
I'm here. Hello.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Sorry about
There
that.
you are. Wait, no, okay. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
there you go. Hey, Peter, go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Appreciate
I'm
it.
good.
Thanks
I'm
for
good.
thanks for the update and the picture perfect timeline that was presented today. Definitely have a couple of questions. One would be for Edwin in regards to, do we know if that will be handled by a new contractor, or are we looking to stay with the same contractor? Would be the first question to Edwin. Secondly, I definitely want to say thank you to Javier. I can't remember the last time he was at a meeting, to my knowledge, but definitely I think it's good to have him here. But I also, since he is on the line, I'm assuming he's still on the line, correct?
I believe he's still on the line, Peter. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, I think it would be good to implement, just because, as he knows, and just I've been open about this. I've been fired about 4 times, and every time I've had to either paper trail or make sure I defend myself. And if it wasn't for me being able to be aware of what needs to be done, I don't think I'll be here, because there have been several coworkers that, unfortunately, whether they know how to um, write an email or defend themselves, I think just in general, it would be good to make them aware of what union rights are. A lot of people come from the community are not aware or haven't worked with a union. I think it's very important for them to know what their rights are and to have something set up for them. I just think it's very important. I mean, like I said, I've been fired 4 times, and it's been a situation where I've been able to either defend myself or prevent it, but I do think it's important. I do think also it's important to know that I don't know why it's seen as a bad thing to be from the community or be able to speak about it during work hours. But I would want some clarification, since Javier is on the line, because at the last meeting when I was rehired, I was informed that either I was being too political, or what they referred to as being an activist for my community, or a champion, I see it, or speak up for my community. So I don't know if there is, and he went on in depth about it, that I couldn't speak about what I belong to, or the organization that I belong to, as an activist. So I just would want to know if there is conflict of interest for me to speak up or speak about the program, because from what he said and what I recollect is that he said that I could only talk about it either at lunchtime. But I don't think I ever talk anything bad about it. It's just what we've done and what we see, and what just to help out the community. So I just want to know if there is a conflict of interest, being that I am from the community, to speak up about the community or about the organization that I pertain, which is East Yards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Peter. Seems like that was 2 questions. One was for Edwin. So I'm going to go to Edwin, and I will see if Javier is still on the line. But I'll start with you, Edwin, if you want to go ahead and address that first question.
Yeah, and I actually, if Medi can join me as well, because I think
Sure.
it's a multi-answer question. Because your question was, will our work or the work that EPA is involved with be a new contractor? And I think that's too early to tell, because I know DTSC is currently working with a contractor, and I don't know exactly where they are in their contracting and renewals and rebids. So I asked Medi to address that. But what I can tell you is, if it's work that the EPA is performing, we would be going through a procurement process which follows the federal guidelines for contracting. So to be able to say whether it would be a same contractor or any contractor, I don't think we can answer that question. I know we would just go through the fair contracting process for awarding a new contract, if that was what we decided as a part of the cleanup process.
And this tying to the same question that Rania Sapti has asked regarding the EPA's role in selecting and overseeing contractors. You are correct, Edwin. We are very early in the process. We have not yet had a chance to go over roles and responsibilities, but this is definitely something that we have on our agenda moving forward. It is early to respond to that, but we are seeing this as a partnership. US EPA will be informed. They don't have to wait until the listing is done. We are in contact, and we are in very close communication on what we are now doing. We're not going to wait until the listing is approved.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go to the Q&A feature right now, try and see if there's any questions in there. Let's see. So we have an anonymous question. And it is, I worked for NEC and was wondering if you're gonna open the line to sampling Montebello and Pico Rivera cities. The wind direction was always blowing 75% into those cities. So Medi, do you mind taking that one?
I don't. I saw that Javier wanted to say something.
Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for Mr. Reyes for addressing your questions to LIUNA Local 300. And as you know, I represented you in the last conflict that you had. And I just like to say to all the Exide workers is if the Laborers International Union North America is not aware of an issue, and we can't address it, okay? So there is a grievance process in the project labor agreement that we can go through, and we will go through it. You know, it goes through steps. It has the first step, second step, third step, all the way to arbitration. So that's in place already. Now, the question is, many union members do not know about the process. One of the unfortunate things with union members is they don't attend the union meetings or contact the union representative to ask these questions, but yes, it's available. As far as Mr. Reyes's concern that he feels that he's a political activist, and was mentioned, what happened is contractor, just like I tell anybody, not just the people working at Exide, you're entitled to your own opinion, you're entitled to your point of view. But when you're working for a contractor and you're at work, first you got to be safe. You cannot be distracted. And you're there to work for the contractor to get the job done. The work at Exide is to go ahead and clean up Exide, not to talk about, what's going to happen this weekend, what's going to go on next weekend, how pretty all the girls are, how pretty all the guys are. We're not there to talk about leisure time. We're not there to talk about political things. Those could be done during your lunch break or your breaks. But when you're at work, you're there to get the job done and to perform your 100% on the job. And I tell that to all the workers I represent. I tell them that there's no way I can represent you. If you're late to work, I can't represent you. If you're late, you're late. I mean, it's going to end up, with a write-up. There's a 3-step process in some cases. You get a verbal, you get a write-up, and you get a termination. But we're here to represent, and that's what we do to our membership. And I think that I am probably, I would say this in regard that LIUNA Laborers Local 300 is very well known for representing the membership, and we have never denied anyone access to that. But thank you very much for your question, Mr. Reyes. And of course, you have my direct line. You can always reach out to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Javier. Appreciate it. I'm going to see if you want to go ahead and answer that one question. An anonymous attendee asked about sampling in Montebello and Pico Rivera. I think you can address that real quick, Medi.
Yeah, currently we are going to clean everything within the PIA, everything within that 1.7 mile. I don't believe that both cities, Pico Rivera and Montebello, are included at this point. As stated by US EPA, once they do their evaluation, that's where probably they look at the data and decide what the data is indicating or suggesting. But at this point, no, we don't, we're not funded to do anything beyond the PIA.
Thank you so much for that, Medi. This question is for Edwin. Rania has another question. It is, what will be EPA's role in selecting and overseeing contractors for the project?
And I have answered that question previously.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah, we have not yet established roles and responsibilities. We're meeting with US EPA and preparing the upcoming plans. So this is a discussion that will happen in the near future.
Okay, thank you so much. What I'm going to do is, in the interest of time, we are going to go to our last presentation for the evening, and then we will have additional questions and comments that will be able to be asked after this presentation. So right now, I would like to introduce our Exide Closure Facility presentation from Poonam Ashiria, Facility Closure Project Manager with DTSC. Poonam.
Hey, thank you, Dion, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for participating in our meeting today. My name is Poonam Acharya, and I'm the project manager for closure and corrective action at the facility. On slide 52, please. So today I will be summarizing the progress that we have made during the last quarter at the Exide facility. In coordination with US EPA and DTSC, WORD has completed decontamination and deconstruction of main building and has transitioned ongoing closure activities to DTSC. Since May 1, 2022, DTSC is overseeing facility maintenance activities in coordination with City of Vernon and South Coast Air Quality Management District. Facilities permits have been updated to include contact information of DTSC's contractor. WORD continues in its role as a property owner and remains a permit holder. And DTSC and WORD are coordinating permit related tasks as necessary. And also US EPA is in loop with that. Next slide, slide 53, please. So these are some of the ongoing activities at the facility. Currently, DTSC is reviewing a work plan for demolition of non-regulated buildings at the facility. DTSC is also planning with its current contractor to scope and implement demolition of select buildings until a general contractor is selected. DTSC is developing a scope of work to complete phase 1 closure sampling and reporting. And DTSC is also planning for sludge removal from wastewater treatment plant. Slide 54, please. So as I mentioned earlier that we are looking into sludge removal from wastewater treatment plant. This slide shows the current level of sludge in the equalization tank of the wastewater treatment plant. And as you can see, the tank is quite full. And at this point, sludge removal is crucial to ensure that there is enough headspace available for future treatment of stormwater and wastewater. DTSC plans on implementing this task later in the month, and which may continue in the first week of September. Slide 55, please. So these are some of the challenges that we will be facing with the upcoming work. DTSC is reevaluating the CEQA, and the final determination will be made based on the results of the new analysis and whether or not there are any significant changes to the environmental impacts. Once we have progressed with CEQA, there will be more challenges with implementing actual field activities. Construction of the enclosure units around some of these buildings will require closure of busy streets such as Bandini Boulevard, and also may require access to the railroad track. We are also planning right now for rerouting electrical that is currently routed through some of these buildings. This will allow us to demolish buildings safely. Also, prior to initiating any of these field activities, DTSC will ensure that all required local regulatory permits such as traffic management, grading and encroachment, building demolition, lane and sidewalk closure are obtained. And all these challenges collectively will take some time before we start bringing the buildings down. This completes my presentation. I want to convey many thanks to all agency partners, including South Coast Air Quality Management District, City of Vernon, US EPA, WORD, and other DTSC team who is assisting me on this project. Also, I would like to thank you all once again for your presence tonight and also for your contribution in shaping path forward. Thank you. And yeah, Dion, back to you.
Thank you so much, Poonam, for your presentation on the Exide facility closure. Okay, we are going back to taking questions and receiving comment. I'm going to remind you of the 4 ways that we will be able to take your questions and make your comments before we get started. If you are participating on Zoom, use the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen, and you will be invited to unmute when it's your turn to speak. If you are on your phone and called in, you can press *9 to join the phone queue. I will say the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak, and you can press *6 to unmute your line. If you would like to use the Q&A feature, feel free to go ahead and type your question into the Q&A. Lastly, if you called into our Spanish line, feel free to ask your question to our Spanish interpreter, who will be available to take your questions. And again, I do want to remind you that our chat feature is being used for DTSC informational purposes. Our team is posting information in there regularly throughout this public meeting. So please pay attention to it as we are posting important information, DTSC updates, contact information, so that you can have the information you need. We will allow you additional time at the end of this public meeting to go in and make sure you have copied all that information as well. So I am going to go ahead and start taking your questions and comments, but I am going to start with our Spanish Bridge line. So Tracy, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to take a few seconds and see if we have any questions on our Spanish Bridge line.
There are no questions on the Spanish Bridge line.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I am going to go to the Q&A. And let's see. John Sermino has a question. His question is, what is the percentage of local hiring for the cleanup? And so I would like to invite Medi to come on if he is available and address that question. Okay, he's not there. I will tell you that we do have a PLA in, okay, there we go. Hey,
My
Medi.
apologies, I were having a little technical problem. My apologies to everyone.
No problem, no problem.
So as shown, the project labor agreement that was signed as early as 2018, sorry, has those target numbers. Now, the word local is defined very, very particularly. Local here, we have 30%, but new environmental worker, which also includes community member, is up to 50%. So combined is 80%. So if the question refers to how many people are local, including community, yes, the total is close to 80%. So we have not deviated from that concept.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Medi. Let's see. What is that? Okay, I think that what I'm going to do now is I am going to go back to our attendees, and I will ask Andres to unmute your line and go ahead and ask your question. Hello, Andres.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Okay, great. Just quickly, I did want to mention, I did hear some union stuff. I am in a union for healthcare workers. And if you want to get involved in your union and you want to help represent, you want to become a union rep. Like Mr. Javier said, you don't want to obviously talk about union stuff while you're on the job. You want to, remain professional and, do the job that you went there to do. And yeah, you can advocate for your members while you're on your lunch break or while you're off of work, of course. So that was that. I'm hoping that everyone that's organizing this meeting is fully attentive to what I'm about to say, because I believe that this is important, and so does the public. They need to know what's going on. Hello, my name is Andres, and I'm a resident of Maywood for 27 years. Our home had a cleanup in June, and I was upset with the poor estimation of how long the excavation would take. The whole point of staying at a hotel was to safely spend time away from the residents while the excavation of lead-contaminated dirt is underway. It was estimated it would take 3 days, and it ended up taking 8 days. The excavation commenced on the 7th of June and stopped on the 14th of June. So in other words, the excavation was stopped halfway due to the weekend, and the contaminated dirt was exposed out in the open air. I'm not entirely sure what the point of mitigating exposure was for. It was all pointless. Saying that we're upset is an understatement. Now, last month, our neighbors got their yard cleaned up, and the workers whom were conducting the cleanup were highly unprofessional, to say the least. As I was headed out to my car to head to work, I saw the workers dumping contaminated dirt with shovels from my neighbor's yard onto our side of the gate where we had at the time bushes. Let me further paint the picture so you understand what I saw. They walked from my neighbor's property around the gate that's dividing the properties with a shovel holding contaminated dirt and began dumping the dirt into the bushes multiple times. Mind you, they had a large dump container that appeared to be full. When these containers holding contaminated dirt are full, our neighbors' yards now open season for dumping yards since they're away at work and would never know. Does the Department of Toxic Substance Control think this is supposed to be okay? When I stepped out of the front door, I heard a loud, "Oh shit." They thought no one was home and no one was watching their reckless conduct. I wish I had recorded with my phone because I don't have surveillance cameras on the property yet. How is it that these workers are being vetted? Are these contractors professionals that know how to handle contamination? Do public officials, local and state politicians, know about the reckless conduct that's being conducted? Because if it happened to our home, it happened to others, and it will continue to happen to others. What the hell is going on? The bushes have since started to decompose. We've also had contaminated dirt spill onto our driveway after watering due to the now elevated soil level. In consequence, we've had to pull out these bushes, and now the contaminated soil remains. Who is going to take responsibility for this?
Okay, thank you so much for that, Andres. I'm going to go to Medi and see if I can ask him. We are sorry for the situation, but I will ask Medi to come forward and talk a little bit more about that. And
Thank you,
then,
Andres.
yes.
Look, what I'm hearing here is concerning. And if that's possible, we would like to be in touch with you because I need more information about this specific site and this specific situation. So I would appreciate if you could please share your information with our team, either on the hotline or via email. We need to know more. We have zero tolerance. If this happened, we have zero tolerance for it. Everybody is trained. Every worker on site has received a 40-hour HAZWOPER that clearly shows what needs to happen and what should not happen. Everyone is getting an 8-hour refresher. This is mandatory in their HAZWOPER. So this process that you're describing is definitely against Kalosha's requirement, and we need to hear about it. So I'll leave it at that because I don't have enough information at this point to really make any comment or respond even to the question. I would really, really appreciate if you can please leave your information behind, and we'll make sure to reach out and get more information from you.
Thank you so much. And I will tell you, Andres, we did post the hotline number in the chat. And so if you want to, if you have an opportunity to call, then we will definitely address any concerns you have once you contact us through the hotline, okay? So thank you so much for that. I am going to go to Maria Estrada. Maria, please go ahead and unmute and ask your question or make your comment. Are you there, Maria? Okay, I am going to go to Roxana. Roxana, please go ahead and unmute your line. Ask your question.
Oh, my question is for Steven. Let me see. Yeah, Steven. He says that my question is, how long do I have to wait after submit my consent form for them to come to my house and check the soil, because I submit my agreement on January, and until this day, I didn't have any answer from them. I've been calling to the hotline, leave so many messages, and nobody called me back. And like Steven says that they sending a reminder every 60 days. I just getting one agreement, and I send it by email, and I send it through fax, and I never get any response. And I would like to know what can I do?
So just to understand, thank you, Roxana. Just to understand, so your property had been initially sampled, and then you received an access agreement via mail that you were asked to sign. You signed it and returned it back, and you're waiting for people to come sample your property, correct?
Yes, I think we lost her, but yes, Medi.
Yeah. So this is a situation where we have really gotten a lot of access agreements. Some of them did not make it. It's unfortunate, but some of them were not received. So if you feel that we are not giving you an answer, please call the hotline. Call the hotline and we will get back to you. If you need a new access agreement to be signed, we'll send someone to your home. That's probably the easiest and quickest way. But we are not ignoring anybody at this point. We're trying to get as soon as possible to everybody who has signed an access agreement. So if you haven't heard anything, there is a likelihood that that access agreement never made it.
Okay, and thank you so much for that as well. And I do want to invite you to, if you can either call the hotline or maybe one of our team members can post our email address for you to contact us via email. And we are happy to connect with you and make sure that your access agreement is retrieved from you. So they'll go ahead and post that hotline and an email address. It's okay if you post my email address, I'm fine. We just want to make sure that we get your access agreement so we can make sure that you're in the system. So thank you so much for letting us know, and we will definitely get in contact with you. Okay, so that it's 8:02. And so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I do realize it is the middle of a week. Of the week, and it's 8:02 and everybody has to get up and go to work. So at this time, I am going to go to our closing comments from our director, Dr. Meredith Williams, and I am going to ask her to come forward to bring the closing remarks so that we can make sure that we end as close to the time that we stated we would as possible. So Director Williams, thank you.
Thank you, Dion, and thank you to all of our speakers. And we appreciate the union representation that participated this evening. We're very grateful to our South Coast government partners, as well as US EPA and the work we're doing with them on the NPL listing. Mostly, I want to thank everybody who attended. We heard some important concerns raised this evening. The team, as you saw, the team is tracking items carefully that get raised so that we can address them and get back to you. Please use that hotline number. It is our best means of making sure that your concerns get addressed. We will continue to work to be responsive and look forward to resolution on some of these issues by our next public meeting. In the meantime, please be in touch, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Williams. Okay, so this concludes our public meeting. I really want to take this opportunity to thank all of our community members who have asked great questions and made very significant comments here this evening. I'd also like to thank our presenters here that have all presented and gave really dynamic presentations. And I especially want to thank our Spanish interpreter for her interpretation services. So with that said, that will conclude this public meeting. And until the next time, we will definitely see you all again. We are going to leave this Zoom open for 2 minutes. What I want you to do is go to the chat and make sure you take a picture, which is the fastest way to do it, rather than write it down, of all the contact information for all of the presentation that we've had here this evening, so that we can reach out to you and you can reach out to us as far as making sure that you have your questions answered and that you get your information that you have asked of us this evening. So with that said, this Zoom will stay open for 2 minutes. Thank you all so much for all of your active participation here. And we look forward to seeing you again at the next public meeting. Have a great night. Thank you.